What's going on, everyone? MikeO back. Wanted to do a little video here showing off some cards that I've prepared for grading and where they're going. So I'm someone who's dealt with PSA for a while, and I've always preferred PSA. That's been the main source for me to have cards graded and to acquire graded cards. But these cards you see are going to go off to SGC. I do have an order out with SGC that I'm expecting to pop and ship back to me any day now, and I'm certainly interested and excited to see how that goes. And the reason that I'm sending these off to SGC, despite the fact that PSA is slowly opening up, they're now accepting some new orders, at least if they're cards that are valued above $500. And there's been some movement on existing orders. They have a small staff working to catch things up. Despite that fact, we still don't know when PSA will be back to full capacity. Will it be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, longer? Who knows? And once they do open up, they do still have a big backlog of cards, of open orders, and then orders that they've received that they haven't quite logged. Plus, once they do open up, they will get absolutely blasted with orders. They will have an abundance of orders that will certainly take a while to get done. So to me, even if they were to open up in the next week or two, you're looking at being lucky to get orders back by September, maybe December, could be even longer. It's going to be a very slow process. So those are some factors, time, that made my decision rather easy to go with SGC. This order, I know if I send off here in mid-April, I can expect it back by late May at the latest, kind of depending on how quickly I get them out. I do trust SGC with grading. I trust their grades. I trust their service completely. I actually personally, especially if it's pre-war or vintage, I actually trust purchasing an SGC graded card grade more so than PSA or Beckett. So you have that trust factor and that time factor, along with great customer service that you can get through, get a response, and have a really solid dialogue with SGC. And I do believe that they are closing the gap. Sure, PSA still has a stranglehold on the grading industry right now. There's no doubt about that. PSA is number one in popularity. BGS is trailing PSA, and SGC is still the third most popular. I've seen some videos recently, and I saw one in particular where someone was calling SGC third rate, and that's just someone who's not exceptionally knowledgeable in the hobby. They're third most popular. I would not call them third rate. I personally do prefer the PSA holders. The SGC holders are nice. I do like them. I just prefer the PSA holder personally, but I'm not going to let a holder alone be the main factor in my decision. So I do think SGC is going to grow quite a bit in popularity. The more big people in the hobby that use SGC and the more cards out in the market from SGC, the more often and the more comfortable people will be with purchasing SGC cards. And obviously SGC has an ability to kind of dominate the market on newer stuff right now, with them being the main ones grading. So I've been thinking about doing SGC for months on end, and finally just recently started moving on it. And as you see, I am sending in modern stuff. I love to grade vintage, just don't have a lot. Have had some time to go through some cards that I've had stacked up for potential grading for a while, and finally decided to make my move on them. So definitely interested to see how things go. Another thing that I really think works in SGC's favor, I do like the 9.5 Mint Plus. As someone who kind of specializes personally in modern, as much as I love vintage, when it comes to grading, I feel like I'm a little better with the modern stuff. The difference between a 9 and a 10 is quite small. And there's many times where I've sent stuff off to PSA where I say, you know what, this is probably a 9 and it comes back a 10, or times where I think, you know, this should be a 10 but could go either way and it comes back a 9. The fact of the matter is, not every card is perfect. There's a lot of cards that are a 10 but have a little bit of an issue, and I think the 9.5 is a good way to kind of differentiate between the 9s and 10s, those cards that are tweeners, because there's a lot that are kind of just in between that. So that's something that I do like with SGC quite a bit. So as you can see, a lot of modern rookies and prospects, and we'll be interested to see how some go through this one for the Phillies collection. Now, there's certainly some in here that I believe will get 9s. That's the kind of the way I factor it in. Anything that I think's got a good chance at a 9 or above is one that I look at, and then I kind of factor in some, and I'll just decide to send some off. Plenty that I believe are 10s. Some will be 9.5s. If I'm lucky, maybe a pristine or 2 or 3. We will see how things go with that, but looking forward to getting these off in the next coming days, and then hopefully by mid to late May, I'll be able to do a SGC submission reveal. So, should be fun. But these are cards that I would like to have back as soon as possible. Obviously, still holding out hope for a baseball season. We got to understand that's no guarantee at this point, but would love to see it happen. Bunch of these are cards that I will keep in the collection. Obviously some duplicates that I will look at potentially selling off. But I certainly am not someone that's looking to just hold on to them, wait possibly 2 months to send them off only to get them back. There's obviously a bigger card there. More, we'll see what it gets. But I'm not looking to hold cards for 2 months to send them off to get them back in January of 2021. So, of course, holding a ton of cards in PSA in the collection. Many love that uniformity of having all the same. And yes, I prefer to have the uniformity of having everything the same, but I'm not someone who's sold on it. It doesn't really bother me that much to have cards graded by various companies, and I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. There's room to have cards from your collection by all 3 major grading companies. But I just feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there. I've heard people compare SGC to GMA, SGC to BCCG, and that's just false. SGC has been around more than 20 years. They are very trustworthy in the grading community. Sure, every company has had some issues. None are 100% perfect, but I do believe that SGC is a company out there and a viable option for collectors to consider. And I think everyone has to make their own choices and maybe try them out, buy some. Some people don't like the flips. I actually have come to really actually like the modern flip. I know it is a little plain looking, but I'm someone who prefers plain over too much. Like, I'm not big into the Beckett flip at all. But the SGC flip doesn't bother me, and the holders are nice. The service, the product you're getting, that grade, I do trust. I think that at some point the gap will continue to close a little bit. Obviously, PSA is going to have a hold on that for a while. PSA has the advantage of a really strong registry and being the brand name right now. But I think, in my opinion, if a modern card is 50 in a PSA 10 or 30 in an SGC 10, I think the 30 on the SGC 10 is probably the better buy at this point. I think the SGC prices are a little deflated, and the PSA prices, generally speaking, on 10s are a little inflated, and I do think they'll come a little closer together at some point. Do I think they'll completely be on the same level anytime soon? No, not necessarily, but I do think the SGC 10 gem mint prices will rise a little bit, while the PSA 10 prices, will be a little more stable. So just wanted to make this video, give my thoughts, and show off some of the cards that I'll be sending off to SGC in the coming day or two. Thank you guys for watching. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I'm sure some people will agree, some people will disagree, and that's all right. Hopefully everyone's staying safe, being smart. Have yourselves a great one.